Awesome. So as you guys might know, over the last couple of months, we've been running these sessions where we invite candidates that are looking for jobs in sales or marketing to get on video with leaders like Marcus and help us apply best practices that work in sales or marketing to our job hunt. I'll kind of let Marcus lead the show, but Doug, I sent Marcus your LinkedIn and a little bit about what you're looking for before the session, but maybe if you want to bring us up to speed on where you're at and how we can help.
Awesome.
Yeah, sounds good. So my job status was affected by COVID back in March. So I've been on the job search since then. Been doing a lot of networking, a lot of these video sessions, and really just trying to get in front of as many people as I possibly can while looking for my next landing spot. And I'm being pretty selective in the process, while still casting a wide net is what I've kind of has been the phrase as of late. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. Good.
And so for you, what are the biggest obstacles you're running into right now?
It's probably experience. I have been in sales for about 7 years, but 3.5, almost 4 of those years were for a professional sports organization. Okay. So I was selling like season ticket packages and corporate partnerships. And then the last 3.5 years I've been in tech. And so a lot of these roles that I'm applying for, the recruiters don't really care about that pro sports experience. They think it sort of seems like a all fun and glamour kind of job. You're going to sports games. Yeah. And so I've been beaten out by other candidates who have more years of experience pretty much. So
you're getting the screening interview, right? And then how deep are you getting into the process? Are you getting close to even an offer stage, like the last final interview, or you?
Yeah, I've gotten to a couple of final stage rounds. Yep. I've gotten to the call with the hiring manager, and in each instance, it's been where we've decided to go with someone whose background aligns a little bit more. Not necessarily like your lack of skills or your personality, but at the end of the day, for me, I've found that experience has won out.
Yeah. So, and I'm going to use a blanket phrase or, a concept for everyone here. Right. And just give you a little background. I have hired hundreds of sales professionals. Okay. I literally have done thousands of interviews. Okay. At the end of the day, regardless of wherever you are interviewing, wherever you are looking to work, okay, you should have 2 primary objectives in every single interview. Every single touch point with them, you want to accomplish these 2 things. And if you can accomplish them very, very effectively, you will get more job offers. You'll get more further in the process every single time. Okay. So the first thing is, number 1, before you leave the interview, it must be crystal clear in their mind you are the absolute best choice for their team. That has to be crystal clear. And that goes into how you answer questions, your messaging, etc. And this is regardless of your experience level, okay? And that's here's reality. Everyone wants to hire winners.
Yeah,
that whether you are sports background or in SaaS, med device, pharma, it doesn't matter. They want to hire the absolute best person who is going to bring the greatest impact to the organization, right? So that's really important, right? So, and for each company, they may have different things as they consider part of the impact. So sometimes it's like they also want someone who is, like a big team player, not just a mercenary, but they are a patriot, right? So you want to know that. So you want to uncover what is the most important things for them, and you are the best choice. All right, you are the absolute. It has to be crystal clear in their mind. Okay.
Yep.
And we'll talk about how do you actually do that, but that's number 1. And then number 2, in the fear of every single hiring manager and every person who's interviewing people is that they make a bad hire. That's their fear. They make a bad choice. That's it. They're like, oh man, like they seem great, but I made a bad choice. Okay. So your second objective is to minimize and hopefully eliminate all risk of bad hire.
Yeah.
So, and you have to do that through different ways. Okay. And everyone talks a big game. So there's many things you have to do to show and prove that, right? And I'll give you a real good example. Okay. So I have one of my candidates, right? Or one of my clients right now, her job history is a little spotty. Over the last 5 years, 5 different jobs, a lot of bad situations happen, et cetera, right? She's been part of the COVID layoffs as well. She just got let go 2 weeks ago, right? Since then, she's already had 4 different interviews. She's had multiple second steps. Today, she's going to go through 3 interviews today as a result, right? Because she's showcasing she's the best and the lowest risk. Okay, so that's why it's so vital. Okay, so let's dive deeper into your situation, Doug. So, and a lot of times this has to do with how are you answering questions? Okay, so what are some common questions you're getting thrown that you answer them? You're kind of like, I think I know the answer. I think I'm answering it pretty well.
I'm trying to think of like the most recent sort of experience where I had so I had a final round a couple of weeks ago where I had an interview panel with 6 different people back to back to back to back to back. It was a final stage. Awesome. And I had interviewed incredibly well. Like it went well. Awesome. Some common questions were, why this company? That was probably the one that everybody asked.
Good.
Followed by, like, what are you looking for in your next opportunity? That's been a common one. Yep. And then obviously, tell me about yourself, tell me about your background. The behavioral and example questions haven't been as common. Like, tell me a time where you did this, like where you overcame objections.
Yep.
Because like as a salesperson, I feel like they want to get to know the person more so than just use these examples. Obviously results are great, but those haven't been as common.
How often in the interviews are you laying out a clear example proving that you are what they're looking for in that question? Does that make sense, that question?
I'd like to think every single time. When using an example, well, I take that back. That a lot of times, a common question has been, what is like, talk about a deal that you've closed that you're really proud about.
Okay. Yep.
Where you overcame the negotiation phase or something like that. And I've got plenty of examples to use. I use the same one because there is one that I am most proud about.
Yep.
And so there are concrete steps and examples and pieces of that one deal that I think go a long way.
Yep. Okay, good. So that's good. That's really good. So that's a mistake some people will make is they're not doing that. And I would say for any type of question that they throw you, one key thing is even if they don't ask for an example, give an example anyways. Mm-hmm. Right? Because here's a one you might get. Hey, how coachable are you? Or something like that, right? Like, and most people are like, oh, I'm super coachable. Like, people tell me what to do and I'll do as long as it's totally good. Well, that's fine, but give a really specific example. In fact, give an example that shows you are clearly coachable. So it might sound like, hey, listen, you know what, Doug, that's a great question. You know what? So on a scale 1 to 10, I would say I'm a 15. And let me give you a clear example why I'm a 15. Right? So there's a situation in which I was doing this, and this, and it was creating this sort of big issue. And I had no idea. My manager pulled me aside. It was actually quite a hard conversation. It was so hard to hear. However, I took it to heart and I started reading about it. I went and took some seminars, took some classes. I started working on that specific piece of feedback they gave me. And as a result, this is what happened. And at the very end of the year, I got feedback from my manager. I did a great job being able to execute on this very tough piece of feedback. And since then, it's made me better. And I'm constantly looking for more feedback to become more and more coachable and be the best version of myself. Mm-hmm. So notice the difference there. Most people stop at, I'm coachable.
I'm super coachable. Yeah.
Yeah. And you apply it to every concept. Does that make sense? Like that's a very powerful way to do it. But also what you also want to do is there's a method to the story, right? Are you familiar with the hero's journey?
No, I
You
don't
heard
think
that term? Hero's,
I feel like
so the
I've
hero's journey. Yeah,
Okay.
and it's good to know, because this is how you want to be able to articulate every answer to every question, which is, I mean, you talk about the STAR format. Everyone knows the STAR format, right? Situation, task, action. The STAR format is a simple version of the hero's journey. That's really what it is. But there is a major obstacle is what happens. There's an obstacle. You're not sure what to do, right? Either you get guidance or you figure out what to do. But obviously, it's not easy. But you seek it out and you start executing on it, and then you're able to overcome it. And in some situations, there's a guide to help you, but not always. But every situation has to be framed up that way, right? And that's really, really important. It gives more impact to it. So let's dive a little bit deeper, right? Because you're getting deep in these interviews. How are you closing each interview?
I've been asking right up front, where do I stand in the process? And what else do you need to see from me?
Yep.
So kind of a different way of asking, do you have any hesitations about hiring me?
Yep.
You have to ask those kinds of questions. You need to address everything right up front.
Yep. And what type of responses have you been getting so far?
So in this most recent round, I asked the hiring manager who was last, who I'd already spoken with.
Yep.
Was like, where do I stand? And his response was not very direct. Honestly, he was like, we brought you to the stage for a reason.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of quality candidates, but you are in a good spot. Is what he said.
Okay.
So,
that's kind of vague.
Yeah.
Very, very vague. That helped. It's tough because then you don't know essentially what objection to overcome, right?
Exactly. And so the best thing that I could do was write a very thorough follow-up that really addressed some of the things that we spoke about.
Yep.
Because we had a mock presentation as part of that interview. So I talked a little bit about that feedback that he provided, and really just tried to be a human. And then a couple of days later, I sent him a video follow-up, just expressing my excitement for the role, and it still just didn't work out.
Yeah. Did you hear from them, or is it just they went silent?
No, they communicated to me. The internal recruiter left me a voicemail saying that they decided to go with someone whose background and so on and so forth. And then I asked for a little bit more feedback, and it was all positive. Basically, like they said, let's keep in touch for a role that more closely aligns with your background, which is good. It means I left a positive impression.
Well, so and here's the thing, and just so you know, right? Most organizations are not going to tell you the real answer.
Of course.
And it's simply because from an HR perspective, there's some issues where it can be misinterpreted, where there could be future lawsuits, et cetera. So a lot of times they're going to give you something general, like, oh, we decided to go different routes. We decided to go with someone more experienced. Oh, there was someone, that was going to be internal instead. There's always like something like it's really general that really means nothing to you, right? Mm-hmm. So what I would say is I would tweak the close a little bit, right? If you're open to it, I would tweak a little bit, right? And I love that you're direct because that's my style. If you could tell, I'm a super direct guy. It cuts through all that fluff, right? But, at the end of each interview, I find it's always great to recap how you are a perfect fit. And then you go for a close. And that sounds something like this. So it sounds like, hey, you know what, Doug? I just want to say thank you so much again for your time today. Based on what you told me and what you are looking for, A, B, and C in your next superstar hire, I am 100% confident I am that hire. Based upon my skills and experience, I know I will be your next #1 sales professional in your organization. Do you have any concerns that hold me back from moving forward in the process to hiring me? Notice how direct that is, right? Yeah. I'm literally asking, do you have any objections? And I want to hear it.
Yeah.
Right. And you
sales call.
Yeah. I feel like that's also, especially for a sales job, like that's what they want you to do when you're doing sales calls. So I feel like I mean, an interview is basically a sales call. So I
Yeah.
feel like that's a good way to end for a salesperson in an interview, because you want to show them that you can close it and ask the question.
100%.
It's a little uncomfortable. It's actually very uncomfortable a lot of times, but that's that's kind of the point. And they want to almost like get snapped out and feel that discomfort.
It's a pattern interrupt, right? It's a pattern interrupt to the HR, the hiring manager, and the hiring manager's like, whoa, that just happened?
Yes.
And the reality is like, it also shows a couple of things. Number one, it shows you have really good active listening skills, because you are able to recap back exactly what you learned in the interviewing process. So like, whoa, this guy this guy got pays attention. And then you realign your value proposition of who you are backed by your skills and experience as well. All right. And then you go for that close for that objection. And then if they say something like, well, listen, Doug, we really liked you a lot, but we can't take into consideration that sports, like it's just a bunch of party guys and gals, right? They'll kind of laugh. I don't know how they say it, maybe something like that, right?
Yeah.
Then that's your opportunity to overcome it.
Yeah, for sure.
And what happens if it goes the other way, where they're like, no, we're good, like nothing.
Cool. So awesome. So when do you want me to take the drug test? like, where do you want me to pee? Right? Don't get weird on them. Right?
At least on my way out, I'll just stop on my way.
I've got my references ready.
I've prepared my references. Yeah.
Right. So and the cool part is if they do say that, awesome, right? And here's the thing, especially if it's a face-to-face or if it's like a Zoom, read their body language, right? If they are in love with you, right? And as a hiring manager, it's so hard to find great candidates. There are candidates when you meet, you're like, wow, I should have hired them yesterday, right? They when you ask that question, they're like, no, Doug, I mean, we're going to hire you, man. I just got to make sure you pass the P test and your background, right? Like
we've done it.
Yeah. And if there's multiple levels, they'll say, hey, listen, you're going to talk to the VP Hytham's next. Like Hytham is real straight edge. So like, no funny jokes. He's not a joker. Don't joke around. Oh, cool. Awesome. Great. What else do I need to know to make sure I win Hytham over?
Yeah.
So and that's why it's so key doing every single part of the process, because it helps you, number one, shorten your sales cycle, if you will. But also, number two, it helps you uncover what are their objections. And when you can uncover the common objections, which you already have already, beautiful. Now you have a better response. Now, the mistake some people make is, let's just say they drop that, hey, the sports thing that you mentioned, right? Your instinct, because you've already heard it several times, is to try to tackle it. Pause. Hey, Doug, I really appreciate you bringing that up. Can you tell me more about what you mean? Wait. Because you really want to uncover what's really on their mind, right? Yeah. Is it think it's a party, or is it because they don't think it aligns, or because maybe they don't think it's a complex enough sales process, right? And they might say, well, the reality is we think it's a really simple sale, and what we sell is a very, very complicated, SaaS solution that's very technical to the people we sell it to, and we simply don't know if that's going to align properly. Okay. Yeah. So if I understand you right, what you're looking for is someone who can handle a complex, detailed sales process with many specifications, and you feel most comfortable with someone that can do that to ensure the best hire. Is that right? Yes. Okay, cool. Aside from that, is there any other reason you not move me forward in the process? Wait. You are isolating out every single objection now, right? Mm-hmm. Then you can respond, hey, great. I am so glad you brought that up. What many people do not realize is actually in what I used to sell, back then with sports, it's actually quite complex. And here's one example right here. Boom, 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 boom. Explain. In fact, here's now my ranking scorecard. I was number one out of 93 reps that year, exceeding quota by 483%. So does that satisfy your concern about my ability to sell complex deals? Again, I'm going for a close again, right? Yeah. So what all you're doing right there is you're handling objections, right? But in a very systematic way. And that'll help you every part of your approach. Does that make sense, Doug? I know I threw a lot at you right there.
No, I mean, it's totally relatable to the actual sales process. You're trying to get to that second level of questions, and like, tell me more about this. Like what is causing you to kind of back off a little bit? It's
100%.
It's directly, it directly relates.
Well, and I feel like if I could just jump in, you know, it was when you were
Yes.
talking about your background, I feel like if they had concerns about the fact that you were, you know, in sports and that you wouldn't be able to do what they want to, then like why'd they bring you in the first place?
Sure.
So I sort of feel like if they have, because they may have a preconceived notion, stereotype that all you did was go drinking with the clients and that's what you did 7 days a week and that's how you got your deals. And which I'm sure is not true, but you know, they may have this preconceived notion. Yeah, you never know. They may have this preconceived notion, which is incorrect. But again, I feel like if that was a preconceived notion, they would have never brought you in the first place. So it must not be that huge a stumbling block. And yeah, if you can like tell them why, even though it's not a direct industry fit, why that gave you the skills, I don't know. I mean, they just need to get past. And you know, the other thing is that maybe the hiring managers doesn't care, but maybe somebody higher up, there's only, you know, you can do the best you can. And
yeah, and that's why you won't win every interview. I mean, you won't win every single job that you go after. But if you can at least get crystal clear clarity and put yourself in a position to have more opportunities, that's really, really powerful. And this is really for everyone. Are you guys familiar with brag books? You guys know what brag books are?
I don't think so.
those are like the photo albums people show of their babies.
Close, right? Close.
Oh.
So again, here's one of the things where everyone talks a really big game. Okay. If you really want to differentiate, I would bring a brag book, whether it's a virtual brag book or a physical one. And what that brag book simply is proof of how awesome you all are. Okay. And inside there's stack rankings, scorecards, award strip pictures, kudos notes. It doesn't have to be formal one. It could be casual notes. Maybe the president wrote you a really nice note saying, great job, great quarter, great month, great whatever. It's basically as many things that you can gather together in one place. That's proof that you're awesome, right? It could be recommendation letters. It could be reference letters from clients. It could be really, it's proof. It's all it is, right? And the more, the better. All right. The more, the better. All right. And if you were doing a physical interview, you would leave them a copy or bring it for them to flip through. Because how powerful is it in that interview when you sit down and say, hey, I brought a copy of my brag book. I'm not sure if you've seen it or not. Here you go. Boom. Before the interviews even start, they're like flipping through, they're like, holy crap. Wow. Winner, 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 winner. You now pre-frame their mind to have a great interview. That's all you did. Okay. Like that's all it is. Right. So, and that's a very powerful way. Now, if it's a virtual one, same concept, everything's scanned, one single PDF, 20, 30 pages long, proof, right? Email that with your resume to that recruiter and hiring manager together, right? They see it. They are warmed up and more bought into you than anybody else. Because think about this. I asked you all if you know what a brag book was. Y'all didn't, which is no offense to you guys. That means not many people are doing it.
Right.
So now you stand out even more.
Not in that style, especially. And maybe have like a couple things. Yeah. And just the fact of like, almost like showing like case studies, actually showing it versus saying it. That's awesome. Cause we have that. I mean, I keep some of that stuff, right? A lot 100%. Of it, actually. I try to keep as much of it as I can.
Yeah. Pictures of trophies, awards. Maybe it's like, sometimes it's like, sometimes it's even so like maybe you're shaking hands with the CEO, you know, because you won an award or you're getting recognition. Like it doesn't always have to be like a really formal thing. Like some of the most powerful ones are like, it's just like an email, you know, from your boss saying, hey, listen, like Doug, really awesome job on this project. I love it. I love what you did here. The customer's super happy. Really cool. Now, if you don't have any, I'll go back, see what you can gather up, right? That's very powerful, right? And it's kind of the same concept of you doing the same thing with your LinkedIn profile, right? Which I'm sure we'll tackle if we had time. But yeah, Doug. I mean, I think you are doing such a good job in the interview. You're getting yourself right there. I think just a couple easy tweaks like that would hopefully help. Was that helpful?
It was helpful. Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And
awesome.
I don't want to take up the majority of this session, but I did want to just ask you real quick about this new situation that I have found myself in.
Yeah.
So last summer, after I was laid off by my old company, I received an offer from a competitor, and my old company blocked the offer because of a non-compete. So I ended up accepting another offer, which obviously did not turn out great because of COVID. So here I am, and I just heard back from that company from last year yesterday saying that they've had an opening. I hadn't been in touch with them at all, and so I'm scheduled to speak with the hiring manager next week. So I don't really know what to expect.
Do you know how long the non-compete went?
I think you're starting over. I mean, that's probably part of it, of course, the legal
Yeah,
part.
I mean, if it was longer than a year, you may still have an issue, but.
No, the non-compete is no longer an issue.
Yeah,
Okay.
they probably knew that.
Yeah.
But I guess Marcus, like, he's kind of, I would imagine like you're starting over, right? Nothing really changes besides the fact that you have some context and there's a reason they reached out to you again, for sure,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, you have to. I mean, yeah. At the end of the day, it's a really competitive job market, as you all know. So you have to you have to earn it, and this is where I've been a firm believer. You have to ask those tough questions in interviews. You have to have the virtual brag book or hard copy brag book. You have to basically show them you are the top hire and minimize the risk. Yeah. And if you are the best at doing both of those, you are the most likely to get hired, and you'll put yourself in that position. And hopefully by doing it consistently, you'll have multiple offers, and that puts you in a really powerful position to negotiate them off each other to get the best possible situation for yourself.
Yeah.
Is it the same hiring manager that offered? Oh, that's good.
So
Oh, good.
I have a relationship with him and the recruiter. And it was just bad timing when it all went down here.
I mean, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know how, maybe Marcus and Elisa and Nick, jump in if you guys want to kind of move on. But I feel like this is relevant for everyone.
Yeah.
I feel like your biggest kind of enemy right now is time. The faster they hire you, the better, because then all of a sudden no other shiny candidates are going to come into their radar, especially if they just posted it.
Oh,
so you need to almost close it on the first call, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Have that mindset. Literally every single touch point is a one call close. One call calls a screening, one call calls a first interview, one call calls a second interview, right? And you'll see, especially if companies are in a pinch to hire someone quickly, they'll find ways to get really creative, right? They'll suddenly you'll be that 6-person interview panel, which means you probably absolutely freaking nailed it, right? They're like, oh crap, Doug's really good. We have a couple other really good candidates. We better swarm them, right? So that's a good sign. It's a really good sign. But again, run like a complex sales process.
Okay. Yeah. I needed to hear that because I don't want to, take anything for granted and say that, oh yeah, it's already locked up. It's go time.
Still you got to hit the shot, right?
We've all had that, right? That with a deal, we're like, oh, it's a done deal. They reached out, they're super excited. They already told me their budget, and then it's it goes sideways.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's you reached out to me,
Yeah, exactly.
Halfway through it.
Right. Yep. So awesome,
Okay.
awesome, Doug. All right, cool. So, is Elisa next, or is it Nick?
Let's go with Elisa. She's been waiting patiently.
Cool.
And
No, this has been. I mean, I was taking copious notes, so it's been helpful for me too. So thank you for all that.
Of course.
Okay, I'm
Nick,
ready.
Feel free to turn your camera
All right.
on if you want. I know you didn't want to interrupt, but totally up to you.
Let's jump. You want just updates on your situation? Anything
Sure.
you're struggling with? We can dive into
Sure.
that.
So I have worked in the tech industry basically my entire career. Most of it has been in marketing roles, and they've mostly been in, small, medium, or startups, where I was, maybe the only marketing person. My most recent company, I was laid off July 1st, a COVID cast off, as I'm calling us. And I've been there almost 5 years. I launched the marketing department originally, and then last year pivoted over into more of a sales ops, revenue ops role. I have had ops as part of my responsibility in every job and everywhere. And I decided, even before the layoff, I decided that I really wanted to pivot to a role that was sales ops, revenue ops fully. I'm really burned out on marketing. And I have this experience, and I enjoy it, and I seem to have an affinity. Again, a lot of jobs, it wasn't, especially earlier, it wasn't necessarily spelled out that was my responsibility, but because I just figure I enjoy the systems and the processes, they ended up in my lap. I was also often the de facto Salesforce admin in a lot of my companies. And then I did earn my Salesforce admin certification earlier this year. So I am looking at, ideally what I'd like is a position where I could build the revenue ops function for a small company. That's sort of my first choice. Or if it's already, established, taking on more of a leadership strategy role, I'm absolutely fine doing the, hands-on stuff, but I would like to be in a role where I can contribute to the strategy, not just of sales, but of the company.
Awesome.
Go ahead.
And also for you, what are some of the challenges you're running into right now?
So, well, were any of you on Thursday night sales last night?
I wasn't able to make it.
No, well,
I was on some of it.
no, the reason I bring it up, so it was interesting because one of the questions that came up that Scott answered, somebody, and I can't remember the specific questions, but basically he said he would never hire a director of sales ops that hadn't been in sales. And I was like,
Yeah, I remember that.
yeah, and I was like, oh, because that hasn't been a huge, some of them have said that in the description, and that part, I'm like, okay, well, I can't claim that. I've worked with sales my whole career. I'm very, very, very comfortable, but I am not a salesperson. So I'd say my challenges have been making it clear that I do have the skills. I have tweaked my resume and LinkedIn a bit to show that ops is a part of every position. I've highlighted, the platforms I've used and things like that. Because for instance, before it would say, director of marketing or senior marketing manager, and I've tweaked the titles so the ops really stands out. I've customized my LinkedIn so things stand out. So I've had interviews. Some of the things I've run into are, I had one, and again, I guess I have to say, I've pretty much applied for jobs that I found out about through the various Slack communities. They've been hugely helpful. So I haven't done a lot of blind applying so far. I've done it with, people who either post them or I find out if anybody has a connection, and then they give my resume to the hiring manager. So I had one last month that, and they told me, apply through the system too. So I did that. Yep. And the hiring manager was the CEO, again, a smaller company. Yep. And he reached out to me by email, the moment I submitted, and said, I want to set up a call. We set up a call 2 days later, got on the phone, and he was like, so glad you could talk. I got to let you know, we've already sent an offer off to somebody. Okay. So that was within the last 2 days. If he had said, if he had replied, said, can we talk tomorrow? Because I'm about to offer it to somebody else, that I would have done it. So that was just disappointing. It was there's nothing I could do about it, but it was just a little odd. And then the one thing I had another job that I was really excited about, met with the, VP of sales, who was the hiring manager, definitely had a good rapport with him. And I asked that at the end, and we had a really good conversation. And I said, do you have any hesitations about moving me forward? Again, I did that because I wanted to know, but he's the head of sales. So I figured I should be a salesperson. And he said, my one concern, he said, I think you've got great energy. You've got some great skills, blah, blah, blah. I'm concerned that you don't have a lot of specific sales ops experience. That was his concern. My last role that I had for about a year was title-wise a sales ops role. That is the only job title-wise that is specifically sales ops. So I chatted with him about it, and I also put it in the follow-up email, gave him examples of places that I've done this throughout my career. And frankly, that term isn't all, for a while there in the small companies, there wasn't a separate function that did that anyways. Ultimately, he said they decided to go forward with someone, again, that had more sales ops, but I appreciate it because he actually did circle back and let me know. And he said, I really did like you, and I think you'd be a great fit at our company, so I will keep you in mind. So it wasn't a total loss, but I guess that's one thing I think I may be coming up against is that, and because my background is so heavily marketing, even though there's ops in there, that may be a problem. On the flip side, I've had people that like that. So I'm.
Well, and, I appreciate you sharing that too. Right. And I would say, don't get too caught up on, here's reality, right? In the perfect world, there's these black and white criteria that people have these hiring requirements for any role, and people fall into that, but it's just not life. Right. We see it all the time, right? In any type of role. There are people who are in the role you want, who have never been in sales, right? They're out there. And so, and what I'll say to you, that all that means is just like marketing, you got to change your messaging. That's really what it breaks down to, right?
Right.
And for example, and that's obviously the situation that they already hired someone, made an offer. That's kind of strange. It is what it is.
Mhm.
But in terms of the person that says, hey, listen, I love that you asked that question. And then they're like, but we want you to have this type of experience.
Well, and I appreciated his having something tangible. So, I mean,
Yeah,
it was,
which is great. That's your opportunity to really dive deep. Similar to with Doug, hey,
Mhm.
tell me more about that.
Yeah, and one of the things I jotted down is like, if that question came up, then I could,
Right.
well, what are you really looking for that someone would have? You know, so I could address
100%,
that.
right? Because a lot of times, if they want the sales experiences, they want to know that you can understand the heartburns and the pains of the sales team, right? And how they run. Well, that's really what they're looking for, right? But they're not saying it that way. You have to read between the lines.
Yeah, and it's like, again, especially because I've worked at small companies, like I've always sat with the salespeople. I mean, they're more my people than anybody else because I feed them basically. They depend on me,
Right.
so I'm a partner.
What you want to be able to do is give them so after you dig in and you really clarify and you isolate out, hey, aside from needing this experience, is there any other reason you're not moving forward in this process? And then from there, if they say, no, that's really it. Okay, cool. Give them very succinct and crystal clear examples.
Okay.
Right. So it's like, hey, you know what? At my last company, even though the title said this, all right, or this house said that, or doesn't even matter. Here's an exact example of what I actually was doing. But more importantly, here are the results reproduced as a result of me being in that role. That's very important, right? Because you're selling the sizzle, not the steak.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's
as a result, X, Y, and Z happen.
100%, right? And of course,
it's a sales role. RevOps is a sales role, right?
It is, yeah.
So you give a couple different examples, and then again, you have to close it out. Does that address your concern? Does that put your mind at ease? And wait.
Yeah.
To say, if they're still they're on the fence still, oh, I'm not sure. Tell me more about that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Dig deep into that objection so you can really overcome it, right? And that'll put you in a better position to handle it.
You know, I'm going to track the company LinkedIn page because I'm curious who they do hire because I just want to see what their experience is and just so I know. Like, I do feel like I had a really good rapport with the VP and we were connected on LinkedIn, so I can keep in touch with him. But I'm just curious.
The one thing I'll mention. Oh, sorry.
They might just hire someone who's like, it's going to blow your mind. Like, that's crazy. I can't believe they hired them. That happens all the time. You're like, well, you hired that person?
Yeah, they have marketing. Well, that's the thing. It's not always like the surface level. But one thing that I think it comes up so much and it's so nuanced, and because Marcus is hitting it, and you guys can study Chris Voss and all these like negotiating techniques and stuff like that. There's a huge difference between tell me more and, well, what else could it be? Is it this or that, right? Like the question that you are asking, Elisa, not to kind of put you on the spot, like you're leading the witness in a way, right? So you're giving him an out, right? Like you're giving him options. And we do that. It's sort of like, like it's almost like you feel like more is more, but less is more, right? So if you just say, tell me more, they're going to choose which direction to take it in.
That's right. It's very subtle, but it's very, very powerful. I mean, you could do mirroring techniques, etc. It's the same concept. Get them to tell you what's really on their mind. Yeah. That's your goal.
You're like, it sounds like, or they'll be like, we want to hire someone with more experience, like someone with more experience, and then just pause, and then let them keep going. All of a sudden they'll start giving you information that, they're just thinking in their mind, why am I telling this person all this,
Right. Again, and when they say someone with more experience, all that means is they're trying to minimize their risk. That's all.
And I get that. And I can understand, again, from reading some job descriptions, why they might want someone but I would still want him to tell me that.
So, and this is where it's so powerful, right? Because especially with the common objections you're getting, find ways to proof it out, right? So for example, going to past employers and have them write you a recommendation letter addressing how you did that specific thing. So when you're in that interview with them and it's part of your brag book, and maybe they didn't even read it yet, and they drop that object, listen, we like you, but you don't have this, you were in sales. Okay, tell me more about that. Well, like blah, 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 blah. Okay, cool. Totally get that. If I understand you, that's the only thing it is. Cool. Let me give this example. Give the example. And actually, here's a recommendation letter from the VP of sales from these last 3 companies. So now again, you're minimizing the risk and making the number one pick. In fact, because you're selling so effectively, and handling objections, you're blowing their minds now because no one does it like this. Okay, so that's what I'll tell you, right? And in terms of just, you also mentioned you're applying to places, right? Applying blindly very rarely will get you the job. It just,
I'm pretty much not doing that. Some of the roles where I have connections, they're like, I will hand your resume, because nobody's in person, but I will give your resume to the hiring manager. In addition, would you please apply online so you're in the system?
Yeah.
Right. So that I do. And that, there was one job where I got a reject from the system, and 3 days later had an interview with the hiring.
Yeah, that happens, man. That is messed up.
Yeah, well, I hate the systems. So so no, I'm not applying to the site and not having any connection, because it just doesn't work. Can I ask one more question? Do I have time?
Sure.
Yes.
So again, a lot of the companies I'm focused on are smaller, or maybe even early stage startups, which I'm not sure about. I want to go because that's what I just came from. But and primarily the hiring managers are whatever head of sales position. It's not. I am never talking to HR people. They probably don't even have an HR person or a recruiter. I mean, in general, it's
a founder probably.
Yeah, I mean, I had one call last week with a guy who was quite literally, his message to me was, how early a startup are you comfortable with? So, and when I said, do you have co-founders? He goes, well, I'm hoping to be able to, I have a co-founder that, I should know by the end of the week if he's going to be a co-founder. That's how early. And I'm like, okay. But, I guess I find though that my concern is that these VP of sales, CROs, whatever, they know the function they need, but they don't really they don't necessarily understand how to interview for them and or manage them. My last manager was a sales guy himself. He had he was a horrible manager of people that don't generate revenue, because I also reported him as when I was in marketing. And so I guess I'm challenged because I don't think sometimes don't know the right questions to ask.
Sure. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does.
And also I want to, I mean, I'm fine being part of sales, but I want someone that understands what I do and will be a leader to me and help guide me and not just throw up their hands.
Well, and so is your question like, hey, how do I vet these out? Is that what your question is?
Kind of.
I'm like, we can't change their process, right? So, I
guess, and I also don't want to have to, it's not my job to teach the manager how to interview me.
Yeah. Well, and here.
Bye, Doug.
Yeah.
Thanks, Doug.
And I think the thing is as well is, with the, remember this, when you are interviewing with them, like you're interviewing them too. Like, Don't forget that. Like, don't forget, I am.
And that's sort of part of my second question. Like, how can I find this out besides saying, so how are you with managing non-revenue generating employees?
Well, a lot of times, here's what I found though, right? You have to ask those questions. And it's okay, right? And you can be really upfront. Hey, listen, I thrive best under great leaders. How would you describe your leadership style?
Yeah, but I never believe them. But go.
I know, but hold on. But then, so after they say, oh, it's awesome. I'm a servant leader. I lead from the heart. Blah 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 blah. Great. What's one really good example of you leading a non-revenue generating employee to success?
And he's going to say, I never have.
Never have. So great. So how do I know if this ends up being a really good fit that we're going to work well together? Mm-hmm. Notice there, who nobody asked this type of question, just so you know.
I know, but for me personally, it's a huge, because it was a huge problem, and 100%. I didn't feel like I had someone on my side because he didn't really understand what I did, and even when so I'm trying to really, to the best of my ability, find a great company and a great.
It's kind of similar to what we were talking about with Doug. Like, those are your objections, and he might have transferable skills or examples of when he has done it, but maybe not. Like maybe it's not exactly the blueprint that you're looking for, Lisa. But let him handle that objection, and seeing the way that he does that and the process and how he thinks about it. in a lot of ways will tell you more than the actual answer.
Okay. Thank
Exactly
you.
right. Cool.
Thank you.
All right. Should we jump over to Nick? Nick, you
Yeah,
on?
Nick.
What's up, Nick?
Thanks
You
for
want to
jumping
share
in. I
Hey,
know
your
you're,
situation?
hey,
I think you're in the
yeah,
car.
sorry, I'm actually dialing in from the car, so sorry for no video, but it's been really
Thank you.
insightful.
Thank you, Nick, for your patience.
Oh, absolutely. No, it's been really helpful. I mean, more than anything, it's nice to know that I'm not the only one going through these similar situations in
Yeah.
difficult times. So yeah, I guess a really high summary. I've been working in business development, kind of at the crossroads of ad tech and fintech for the better part of the last 10 years. I was with a company called Bankrate for 8 years. I kind of grew up in that company. Once the company was sold, I took my first swing at a startup. I took a VP position of BD there. Definitely heavier on the fintech side of things. It wasn't really working out. I stepped away from the company earlier this year, right before COVID, which was a great decision, timing wise. But I left for the right reasons. I originally joined the company to have some strategic input on the direction of a high growth company. And my focus was really to bring on new sources of aggregated consumer demand in order to get into new verticals. The company's even financial. It did primarily personal loans. They wanted to get into credit cards, mortgages, and things like that. It shifted away from that and more toward dealing with kind of affiliate marketers and very transactional partnerships, as opposed to the kind of long-term strategic partnerships that were more technical, which is what I enjoyed doing, why I wanted to join in the first place. So fast forward, I've been actively interviewing now for quite a few months. And I've had a fair bit of success getting through the initial couple of rounds of interviews. I've just been really unable to ultimately seal the deal, I guess, is really what it comes down to. I guess from a specific question and a tactic standpoint, where I think I might be lacking is, I think one of my strengths is I have a pretty, I think, not to brag, maybe this would go on my brag book,
Good.
but a pretty well-rounded background where I got my start in analytics and business intelligence before moving over to BD and really being kind of a full stack business development person for years, from prospecting to negotiating, closing, light technical QA work. And I think my message is getting a little diluted in trying to highlight that diverse skill set, which I think is valuable. And then I think the reason I can't ultimately close the deal is if the role is geared toward more ongoing existing account management and cultivation, they say, hey, you haven't really been in a direct account manager role for that long. I kind of moved, I believe, kind of moved a little bit past that, or if it is more sales heavy, I have always been in a hybrid role where I am bringing on new business, but also responsible for growing accounts. So I guess that was kind of a long-winded way of saying my problem is being long-winded. And, is there a technique or do you have any sort of input on how to, highlight specific things?
I'm so long-winded.
Yeah.
Dude, you're super analytical, bro. I'm just,
yeah,
I can tell. I'm like, oh yeah, I could tell. I'm like, yeah, he's analytical.
yeah.
How do you basically cut to the chase? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah. And I'm curious on why, or if there are any things that, without you being on the calls, I don't know how you would necessarily know this, but on why these processes start to stall out, where I'm getting through HR, I'm getting through the initial interviews, but when it comes time to meet with the broader executive team, or I get in these sort of holding patterns, and somehow, you mentioned earlier, sometimes these candidates pop up where they ask me to hold tight for a week after everything has gone well with very little objections. And then, it came up, it is a competitive job market, and, this person kind of swooped in. So, do you think it's a negative that I'm kind of presenting this sort of broad skill set, or how do you kind of fine tune that, or how do I get them to give me real input in terms of what they're looking for?
Yeah. And I would say, first off, your skill set is what made you successful in the past, right? So don't ever discredit that. Right. And that's really important.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. And I would say, for you, what that means is they like you enough, and it's kind of like they're attracted to you enough to at least go on a couple dates. Right. That's what it is. Like they ask you out, a couple dates, but there's something happening in the dates that's saying, you know what? I'm not sure if I want to go to a second date or a third date. Right.
Yeah.
So we have to uncover what those are. And I would hate to just jump to conclusion. It's like, maybe you feel like you're long-winded. You're like, oh, that's probably why. that might not be why. We don't really know. I wouldn't tackle a problem I don't know exists or not. That's what I would say first. And the second thing I would say is, and it would be, I would want to isolate out what's the exact objection. Were you here when I dropped like the closing line you dropped for an interview?
So I've been, and I've gotten that advice before, and I've been trying to implement that, and I really have had a hard time. I think I need like a second objection, because we've gone through the process and, thank you for taking the time. Now that you've gotten a good sense of my background, is there anything that stands out as a potential objection on why I'm not a good hire or a great fit for this role? And I've literally gotten zero feedback that's constructive in that point. It's great, we like this. But I that can't be true, right? I know that I'm not the greatest candidate of all time, or else you would hire me, right? So I don't know, is there some techniques that I can kind of push without being confrontational?
Yeah.
Actually, can I just make, because I want to just pipe in, sorry to interrupt, but
Sure, please.
When we were chatting with Doug, Elisa, Nick a little bit, everyone's kind of sales minded on this call. Marcus, obviously you're sales minded, but there are marketing folks and there are account managers and there are ops folks out there that are not used to and conditioned to like going for the close, and it's uncomfortable, and you don't want to come across confrontational. You don't want to have the other person feel like, they're pressuring you. And a lot of times that's when you become long-winded, because you try. That's related. I wanted to make sure I just made that point. Like, that would be awesome if we could uncover that a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think something you said that resonated was not giving two different paths for the answer. And I think I definitely want to start doing that, where, using silence, right? Yeah. Do you have any objections? Not, is any of your objections either A or B, where I'm kind of giving them an out. And maybe I am doing that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I would rephrase your language too, right? One thing I've observed just listening to you talk is you use a lot of words and like buzzwords in your industry. Like I would remove words like, "Hey, what objections do you have?" Like that's what salespeople say, right? Like go simpler. Like, "Hey, listen, I'm 100% confident I'd be the 100% the best fit for this role. Do you have any concerns that hold me back from hiring me?"
Yeah.
Like the word concerns is a very human, regular person talk, right? So that's important. Mm-hmm. So then you can hear the concerns. They say no. If they still say the same thing, you know what? No, actually, this is absolutely great. Awesome. So to make sure I'm on the same page, you love what we talk about today. You're 100% confident you'll be moving me forward in the next step in the process. Is that right? Again, notice I'm re-clarifying, especially if you already heard the answer you wanted here. Great. Re-clarify again. You may hear a different answer, or they might say, nope, 100%. Cool. Awesome. So should we go ahead and step the next step right now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that.
Start controlling the process more, right? And if they didn't already enlighten you on what the path looks like, then you can know, right? So that's what I would do to help hopefully shorten down your process and cycle. And in terms of how do you, be less long-winded, if you will, here's really easy. Maybe you already did this. I literally would at this point, you probably have heard a lot of the similar questions. Okay. Over and over and over. I would literally take a Google Doc, type them all out, and structure out one example for every single one. Literally type in one example for the most common 10, 15 questions you have. And you want to have 10, 15 different examples, like specific examples that you then can just practice. I mean, not to memorize, but more so to get the flow. So you're able to take what is a typically longer answer, maybe a 5-minute answer, and condense it down to say a minute and a half, 2 minutes without removing the impact. And it just takes a little bit of practice, right? And have you tried recording yourself?
I'd hire me was the first time I actually saw myself recorded. We were on a call and we actually went through that. So that was helpful.
Good. I would do that on your own. Record, pull out your phone, pull out your iPhone, drop the voice memo on or Android, download an app, record yourself. And you might become pleasantly horrified on how you sound, but it'll give you clarity to your situation. And that's all you want, clarity to fix it. That's all.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. It's actionable too. So I'll definitely try it.
Yep. I love that. Watch your film, man. And then just on the marketing side, so like, how does somebody who's not comfortable doing this, or I don't want to call it fear, it's natural, right? And not that fear is necessarily bad, But how does someone how do you overcome, like, is that practice, Marcus, where you just like went for the close so many different times? Like, I know we're running up on time, but like, how do you break that?
I mean, in terms of the objection about marketing?
No, just like as a marketer or as someone who's not necessarily used to being in those uncomfortable closing at the end of the call environments, like how do you get past that fear that you're going to end up seeming confrontational or like pressuring the person where it's like, you're going to scare them away?
It's very simple, right? You can either, fear, ask a tough question, or you can fear being homeless and not having a home to pay for and paying your bills. I mean, I don't know. Like it's one of those things where what's going to be more painful, right? And it's when you have the understanding. I mean, I grew up so poor where I'm like, okay, either I do the tough things or I'm poor. It's that simple, right? Either I take care of my family or I can't. And that means you have to do tough things. And if that means if you are uncomfortable with those questions, you need to practice it over and over, do it. Like, do it. Like, if it means you need to like stand in front of a mirror and also record yourself and do it 100 times before an interview, do it. Like, don't forget, like, your number one job right now is to get a job. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So allocate that time and practice it methodically till you can do it without hesitation, right? It's uncomfortable for everyone, but that's what differentiates getting the job or not.
I love that.
Yeah.
You're not trying to get them to like you. Your goal is to get the job.
Yeah, get the job. But I mean, you can still be likable. You just do it.
Right.
Do it so it's comfortable for you. Like, hey, I'm 100% confident I'll be the best fit. Do you have any concerns that hold me back? Smile, wait, and roll from there.
No, that's awesome. Does that help, guys? Elisa, Nick, any parting questions? I feel like you should all get on a call right now and try to close someone, right? Let's get into this.
Do you have any concerns about closing this call? No.
No videos for anyone, no.
Yeah, this is great. Thank you.
This is super helpful.
Awesome.
So thank you for me. I can't even talk. Thank you for making it happen.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, thank you, Marcus, so much. Thank you, Elisa and Nick, for jumping in here. And
Absolutely.
good luck, guys. I will chat with all of you soon and have a great day.
You too.
All right,
have a good
thanks again.
weekend.
You guys,
Bye-bye.
happy Friday.